What is going on, my beautiful people? Welcome to yet again another episode of the Pivot Mindset Podcast. My name is Justin. I'm your host, and we are super excited to have you joining us on yet again another episode. We here believe that life is all about the pivots, and those who decide to make the pivots decide to become successful. Just want to give all of you a shout out for continuing to listen to this cool podcast that we started a couple of months ago. Didn't know it evolved to what it is today. But we're really building a community, and our goal is really supporting entrepreneurs or high performers, really when it comes to mindset, because we know most of the job is done mentally. Most of success and what it is to accomplish success happens mentally. And this is a rare treat we've got for you today. We don't often do this, but we want to get in the habit of doing this more. But we've got a guest on the episode today. So if any of you are watching on YouTube, you see her nice and shiny in your screen there. But for you that are listening audibly, we have a guest on. And I want to introduce her, and we're going to dive right in. And so I want to introduce you all to Kelsey Wozniak. Kelsey is someone who is very near and dear to my heart. She's been a very important part of really just business for me. She has been a great friend over the years. We met, interestingly enough, in I would say my second business venture, which was real estate. And we met very early on in my real estate journey. She supported me, I believe, on my second project, my second flip that I had ever done. And ever since then had just added so much value to my business. And she's just such a great leader in the real estate community, but also in the business community in general. And I'm excited to have her on because, one, she can bring some female perspective to the conversation. But then, two, she's just like killing it on so many different fronts, so many different areas that I believe many of us are trying to get better at. And so without further ado, I want to introduce Kelsey. Kelsey, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Justin. How do I follow that up? Thank you for that intro. That's awesome. I'm super excited to be here for sure.
Absolutely, man. It's so glad to have you on. So let's dive right in. So tell us a little about you. Kind of give the listener some background, like where you're from. What do you do? How do you introduce Kelsey?
Yeah. So obviously my name is Kelsey. You guys know that at this point. So I am in the real estate industry right now, and originally I am from Indiana. Currently living in Northeast Ohio. I have a almost 19-month-old son at the moment. So he's a crazy man toddler. And I swear the last 19 months has been faster than any year of my entire life. All the years combined, I feel like. So that's my life right now. I am building a business with my husband, Andy. He is now also in the real estate world with me. So he left his corporate world job back in 2020, and he's been with me ever since. So it's now, 2 years into that. A little bit about me. I've been in the industry in real estate for almost 7 years at this point. Originally, I was planning on being a teacher, not a realtor. So talk about pivots, just a change there for sure in my entire mindset of what my life was going to like. But I have a degree in education from Kent State University. And very quickly into doing that, I learned that I didn't love it as much as what I thought I would. And life happened, and I ended up getting into real estate. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. Wow. So, man, it's a lot to get into. So tell us a little bit about that transition from teaching into real estate. What made you do that? Why was that something that you wanted to do? And do you miss teaching is the other question I've got.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, me and Andy are very spontaneous decision makers. We are the type of people, and it's obviously changed a little bit now that we have a toddler at home. But before that, I feel like we're quick with decisions. If you've ever read the book Blink, that's something that I feel like is very much how we are with our life. So that was probably one of the first untrained Blink moments for me, where I was teaching. Long story short, I don't have a certification in education. I have many, many, many credit hours for education, but just life track took me a different way. So I have an education degree, which changes how you can teach in Ohio, where you can teach in Ohio. So I was teaching at basically a daycare preschool. So I was a lead preschool teacher, and very, very quickly realized that I did not love it. That was not what I was meant to do. I basically told myself that if I keep doing this, there's no way I will ever have my own children. Like it was not good.
Yeah.
And I was doing that and I just wasn't really happy at all, but I was, stubborn, and I had this degree and I was like, I got to keep doing this. This is what I said I was going to do. I can't go through 5 years of school and then not do what I said I was going to do. So I was teaching, and we were actually buying our first house at the time. And Andy and I were engaged. So this was spring of 2015. We had just moved back to Ohio the year before that. Um, and our realtor was actually a past teacher, and she left the education world for some health reasons. She liked the flexibility of real estate and everything. And we were sitting at our home inspection. I remember it plain as day, sitting at our home inspection. And she was like, Kelsey, have you ever considered real estate? And I was like, no, not really. I mean, I'm, teaching and this is what I'm doing. She's like, I know, but you hate it. I was like, yeah, I do. I know, but it'll get better. I'll figure it out. And she's like, I mean, there's a lot of teachers who become realtors, and you're kind of wired to be a good realtor when you're a teacher.
Wow.
And so it just kind of sparked something for me, planted a seed, and then it was kind of the spiral effect from there. I was like, maybe I can do this. Maybe this is something that I want to do. So literally, we closed on our house May 5th, and we got married May 30th, and then went on a 2-week honeymoon. And the day after we got back from our honeymoon, I started my real estate classes.
Wow.
So it was a very, very fast transition. And that was June of 2015. And I was licensed in October of 2015. And the
Wow.
rest is history.
Wow. There was so much there. So one, the whole Blink thing, because I think this is such a more like really important aspect of entrepreneurship. I think being successful in general is being able to make quick decisions, like taking action. I think action and taking action and being someone who does take action is very important. And
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy how you're like, yo, you literally transitioned your life and made a huge pivot at that time. Preschool teacher turned real estate mogul. Like that's
Yeah.
crazy. That's
No one
crazy.
expected it. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So what, because you said the person who kind of got you into it and kind of gave you a thought of it said that teachers often really become good agents. What is it about that? Like, what transferable skills do typically you see, or did you have that helped you in your business?
So it's funny because I still have a passion for teaching. Like, I love teaching, and every time that I am in front of a room and I'm able to deliver, value for someone, like, it literally like fills my soul. So for me, I feel like that's something that I knew I wanted to keep it. It was just the age range that wasn't right for me. So from the very beginning, I built my business on the idea that I can use education in the real estate industry. And that would be how I build my foundation, basically. I had no idea if it was going to work. I had no idea, what that would look like or anything, but I knew that that's what I wanted it to be, was just education centered. So for me, it was a really easy transition, not necessarily in building a business, but it was an easy transition in knowing where I fit. I teach every single day. And it's funny because it's like, oh, I'm not using my degree. I'm using my degree all the time, because whether you're working with buyers or sellers, you're working with other agents that you're helping them on, you are teaching them. And not everyone is wired that way. That's kind of been my niche in the business, especially when it comes to my clients, and now into the, on the agent side of things too, which is funny. It's all transitioned. But with buyers and sellers, my biggest thing is I'm like, listen, I'm going to give you all of the information so that you can make an educated decision.
Mm.
That's been my thing all along, is I want to give you all of it. And then you make that decision for yourself so that you feel comfortable and you understand what you're doing. I mean, real estate's a big deal,
Yeah.
buying a house, selling a house, you're talking, I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars, so that's
Yeah.
been my thing. So I don't miss it
Wow.
because I'm still doing it, just in a different
Yeah.
realm.
You just evolved. You just evolved, and it's interesting how it normally that's how life often works. Is I think we often think that making changes means that you just start over, when really you take so many aspects of what you did in a previous life and able to apply them to that new life, right? And so I think
Right.
that could be a big piece for anyone that's listening, and maybe you are in a place that you are wanting to make some kind of adjustment in your life. You are wanting to maybe do a career change, or start that business that maybe is not fundamental to who you are, or maybe that expected thing, that you don't lose everything when you do something new. And in fact, I think what you were able to do is you started to kind of think on what are my transferable skills that I can leverage in this new role, in this new job, in this new career path that would allow me to be successful. And it's crazy
Right.
because it also, there was a, I believe I forget who says it. It's either Jim Rohn or someone. It's a quote out there, and the quote is, "What's more important? The boat that you row in is more important than how hard you row. The boat that you're in is more important than how hard you row." And it's interesting what you're doing right now. You're leveraging a lot of the same teaching ability and skills that you had at a preschool, but you were just in a different boat. So I'm sure and we'll talk about some of your success and the money and all that kind of stuff, but no matter how good of a teacher you were, I'm sure that you wouldn't have had the same success that you would have had because you got into a different boat, and that boat for you happened to be real estate. And so you can either be a phenomenal teacher and row really hard to try to accomplish your goals and determine, like, I'm just in the wrong boat. Like, I'm doing the right thing. It's just in the wrong place. It's in the wrong boat. And so talk to me about that. Like, when you made that transition, was it like your first deal? Like, when did you start to say, oh, wow, I'm onto something?
So a couple of layers to that, I guess, or I guess moments. The first deal, definitely not. The first deal, I was panicking.
Wow.
I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like freaking out here. Like my hands are shaking trying to write this offer, which I think anyone who's new in anything, but especially in real estate, like that first deal, you are scared to death that you're going to mess something up. So I would say that it wasn't that deal. There's one specific deal that I remember being like, oh my gosh, it clicks, like I get it. I can see myself doing this. I'm starting to understand the process and being able to actually feel like I'm educating someone else versus feeling like I'm being educated the whole time.
Yeah.
And it was probably at that point in time, it was probably almost 6 months to a year in at that point, probably about a year in that I really felt like that. And then for me, I would say there's two things. I think that what's interesting is I love the education piece of it with first-time homebuyers. And then it's transitioned, and now I love that with sellers. Like I love being able to tell sellers, like, these are all your options. This is what you can do. This is how this can work. And what I did is I also found another passion of mine, which is the creative side of the business. That I think, again, it's a teacher character trait. Like every teacher that every elementary school teacher, like they're all very creative. They probably have a Cricut at home, like there's that side of it. And so what I realized is that I can do that in real estate as well. And I feel like that's been something else that's been pretty fun for my business when it comes to social media, designing content, things like that, putting stuff out there, how I present my listings, all of it. Like it just all kind of goes together. It's pretty crazy.
Wow.
How it can transfer.
And that's so it's crazy how that comes full circle because you were referred to me by one of my really good friends, Demetrius Wright. Shout out to you. But you were referred to me by him, and he's like, hey, there's this kind of new, and I believe you were newer. I think you were probably in your first year or something like that. It's like, hey, this is new agent out there. She's killing it. And I was attracted to like your branding and your advertising and how you posted your listings, right? Because for me, that was important in my business in general. And so to see, and it was just simple as like looking at your social media and looking at how you were, talking about your listings and how, you had a brand out there, the whole KTR thing, like you really created a brand that has grown and developed into many things than it was initially. So it's crazy how that comes full circle where you were able to use that creativity to even get, I'm sure, more than just me, but other people that are like, man, she's really putting herself out there. You're really building a brand. How important is building a brand to business? Like when it comes to growth, success, the accomplishments, all that kind of stuff, how important would you say building your personal brand has been to your success?
I mean, it's huge. I don't know that I can put a number on it for like my business that I've gotten, but I think that it is one of the most important things that you can have in your business. And when you talk about branding, I think that so many people think of logos. They think of, that kind of thing. And I teach on this a lot actually, like to other agents and other business owners. And what I always tell people is you are your brand. You are your personal brand. And what you're trying to accomplish is you are basically trying to hold first position in someone's mind for whatever industry you're in.
So
So
good.
how you show up in front of them, when it comes to your branding, whether it be, it can be a logo, great. But think about your personal logo. Think about your personal brand, whatever that is. And that's what I did that was so different, I feel like, for Northeast Ohio at that time.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
was.
what was it, 5 years ago that we started working together?
Yeah.
Um, which is crazy.
Yeah, people weren't even
But
advertising themselves like that. Like then it
no,
wasn't for
it was
someone to
not a
have a
thing. I
personal
mean,
brand, a logo. It was all from my perspective. It was all behind the
brokerage.
brokerage. Yeah, it was all.
Yep. And I can tell you because that was the transition period where I was also, I mean, that's when I went from a boutique brokerage and I launched my business at EXP. And what's crazy is that was a transition period for me where, like, even that, like, I was ruffling feathers at my last company because they didn't like it.
Yeah,
And I was still compliant. I was still doing everything by the book, but they didn't love the fact that I was branding myself, because that they felt was creating competition for the brokerage, and at the end of the day, like, you are your brand. You are the business person. You are the person that they're choosing to work with. They do not care who your brokerage is. They just don't,
yeah.
and sorry, go ahead.
No, that's just so important. And I love that you said it's first position, because that is so powerful. What it is to be first position in someone's mind. And I want to
Mm-hmm.
skip here because this is a question that I had for a little bit later. Because, and I think so many people can learn from this. I'm selfishly learning from this is right. What it is to grow a business that's heavily referral based, right? I think just the industry of real estate and what it is to be an agent. That's and I'm sure other businesses are heavily referral based, but I think, to me, I've seen real estate agents, really get behind that understanding early, where some people, they
Mm-hmm.
just organically grow and they don't know necessarily what it is. But most agents, or I've heard it talked about very often, like, hey, it's going to be your referral business. It's going to be how you take care of this client that gets you referred to another one. I believe you've done that really well. I think I think, if I were from the outside looking in, one of the things that I see from growth is what you've done behind your personal brand, but also, how you've built your referral business and what that actually looks like. And so kind of talk us, and you do some pretty cool things. So talk to us about what it is to build a referral business. And then we want to know, like, what's the stuff you do? Like, how do you cultivate the referral process? How do you cultivate the relationships and getting, referred to other people? Like, what do you do to build your referral business out?
Yeah. So I love this part. Like, honestly, like, the client, I call it the client care, the client relationship, the referral based business. Like, that's the part about this business that I love. And to me now at this point in time, real estate is just the vehicle for us,
Mm,
So it could be any industry. I feel like that you're in a referral based business like this, but for me, I did realize that really early on. And what's interesting is I am from Indiana, like I was saying. I was also very, very young when I got started. I mean, I was fresh out of college.
yeah.
And I felt like I had to put on this show that I was like this, really professional realtor, all that kind of stuff. And it took me a little bit of time to just find my footing in the industry and realize, like, you have to be yourself. You have to. If you're showing up as someone else, it's never going to work. It's just not. And so it took me a minute to realize that and kind of figure that out. And once I did, and once I realized, like, the only way I'm going to build my business, I don't have a sphere here. I don't have a sphere of influence when it comes to my family and my friends that I grew up with and my friends of friends. They're all in Indiana. They're
Yeah.
5 hours away. So for me, it was me trying to figure out how can I build a business with what I have access to. And I knew that I didn't want to be transactional and cold calling and door knocking and all of that kind of stuff. It just wasn't me. It didn't fit. And so what I did from the very beginning is I treated every single connection, relationship, person that I met in the store, whatever it was, every person that I talked to that I was able to build even a small relationship with, I treated them as if they were in my database, my sphere of
Mm,
influence. So from the very beginning, I built my business, even if it was a transactional lead that came in somehow, someone that walked through my open house that I'd never met before, I then immediately turned and created a relationship with them. So the way that you do that is just you start to get to know them.
yeah.
You have to work for it. And so for me, that's kind of how I built my business in the beginning. Was I had to create the business, and find it. You had to find the business, hold open houses. I was doing 4 open houses a weekend
Mm,
in the beginning. I mean,
wow.
every single weekend I was doing two on Saturday, two on Sunday, and obviously it's a different market right now, but I was working really really hard for it, and because I was in the very beginning trying to create that the relationship to create my database, to get that going.
Yeah.
I think it ingrained some skill sets in me that I've then built on ever since then. Now that I do have a book of business and I have past clients and, people that are referring me and things like that. So to get to where I'm at now, every single bit of our business at this point in time, I would say 99% of our business is referral based.
Wow.
Like we do not pay for any advertising when it comes to Zillow, realtor.com, any of those things. We don't do door knocking. We don't do anything like that. It's all organic. And for me, the way that we do that is, in my opinion, the magic is being a part of their life. You have to be a part of their life. And from the time that you meet someone that you think might be someone that you're going to work with until the time that they close, until 3 years, 5 years, 10 years later, you're not a past tense. It's not a past client. It's not, she was my realtor. It's, she is my realtor.
Yeah.
And so when you have that mindset around it, what I've done is basically taken, if I have 250 past clients, in my database, I'm looking at those like, these are my VIP people. These are my people. And how can I love on these people in a way that is going to show up in their life, that's going to matter to them? Wow. And so it's basically just getting really creative with that. Like, I've done so many different things, and I feel like there's no right or wrong way to do it. But I mean, obviously pop buys are a really easy one, doing like we do this now consistently for every single holiday. I'm literally just taking 12 to 15 little bitty cheesy gifts to people's houses and dropping them on the porch. Done it for you. And you've caught me on your Ring camera.
Yeah, I have.
And doing things like that, when people have kids, dropping stuff off like that, or doing it for the parents, whatever it is. We send out mailers for people. We do our sports calendars, just a magnet calendar that goes on their fridge. But one that we just recently did that was amazing, that I absolutely loved, was we did a Mother's Day photo shoot. And it was for all of our past, I just did it for the buyers this time around. So basically sent this to all of our buyers that have worked with us. And we rented out a studio, and we did a photo shoot with an actual photographer. And we did it kind of open house style, like sign up for a time, come, and you get a mini session with the photographer.
Wow.
And you get free, like 10 free family pictures.
Wow.
So it
Kelsey,
was, and we did like a
this is huge.
This is so fun.
This is so huge.
Fun. And so this is the thing, like people look at this stuff, and yes, it takes work and it takes planning and it takes, you got to send the invitations. You got to, it's work. But we spent in total, I would say about $1,000 on everything. Between the photos, we did some little basket raffles. I got a couple of sponsors to donate a couple of things for us. So all in all is about $1,000 in one full day. And I had 20 families that came through. You better believe that those 20 families.
Oh, absolutely.
I am now the person that they want to refer.
Yeah.
Not just the person that they will refer. They want to refer.
Oh my gosh. Kelsey,
and
so
the one-on-one time, it was amazing. It was so much fun.
This is so valuable. For so many reasons. One is there's so many gems here. So, but one is you've worked so much smarter and not necessarily harder. You've been able to build a very successful real estate business, not having to spend tons of money in ads, not having to generate more. And this is something that I work with, clients with, is where's your warm market already? Right. It's much harder to acquire a new customer when they're cold, when they don't know you from anywhere, when they're seeing an ad or they're seeing something you're posting online. That is the hardest customer to acquire. The easiest customer to acquire is those that have already done business with you, the ones that have already leveraged you before, already, and especially if you've taken care of them. And so you've literally, and that's the cool thing, is you by using your current customers, your current clients that you've worked with, they are warm or hot clients already, and they're able to bring you more warm or hot clients because their referral is warming you up enough, right? I'm sure that when you are referred to someone, you don't have to sell them necessarily on why choose you and what makes you different and all that kind of stuff. They're like, hey, yeah, Joe Schmo said come to you and you're my girl, so what do we do?
Right.
And so there's just so much there. But I love the intentionality that you put behind it. So for all of the listeners here, it doesn't matter what business you have. It doesn't matter if you're an agent, if you're a coach, if you're, selling apparel. It doesn't matter what you're doing, if you're a contractor, et cetera. Finding a way to be intentional about building out your referral business can be so important to the growth within your organization. I believe and and here's the thing, it becomes a snowball effect, right? Like it just gets bigger the longer you go. You don't have to churn and burn. That's very counterintuitive to, a lot of your internet marketers out there, right? They just get really good at getting people into the door, and that's good. There's a place for that, and there's certain business models that is important.
Business model is different for sure.
Yeah. But I think we leave so much hanging out there. We leave so much meat on the bone, I'll say, when we don't leverage and spend more time into being intentional about our referral business. I had listened to, it's called Giftology. It's a book. Have you read that book? Are you familiar with it?
I haven't, but I feel like I need to.
Yes, you would love it. You would love it. So Giftology, they actually used to be located in Cleveland. I believe they may have a location there now, but they're, I think, in California. They're somewhere else now. Very big company, have grown dramatically. And all they do is they work with executives on gift giving to their clients. So Kelsey, for example, you would go to Giftology and you'll say, hey, here's my top VIP clients. I want to give them customized gifts, throughout the year. And they'll take your budget and then they'll do everything from there. So if you're like, hey, I've got $10,000, I want to dedicate this to my top VIP clients. Here's things I want to do. I've listened to a few interviews from the owners and the founders of that organization, and they've talked about types of gifts they've given, and it'll be something very custom to that person. So say if they learn that you've got a dog named Cooper, right? Your dog's named Cooper, right? Your son's named Cooper. I'm sorry, Jesus. What's your dog's name? I'm sorry.
Fitz.
Fitz. Okay, sorry.
I actually mix them up all the time, so it's totally fair.
I was gonna say I do that all the time. My daughter's name is Zara. See, I was getting ready to do it again, and my female dog's name is Arya. Zara's R is Arya, and Arya's R is Zara. So.
Oh yeah. That's hilarious.
But say if you said, hey, I've got a dog, or my client has a dog, and the dog's name is Fitz. They would do they would maybe find a dog collar and put its name on it, in a leash set, and send it to you in the mail, right? Or hand deliver it.
That's awesome.
They talked about Cutco knives, and one guy, his client was a pastor, and so they put all of his favorite scriptures on all of the Cutco knives. And so this is
cool.
a very personalized, and they talk about not doing consumables, but doing things that people would use all the time, right? So every time somebody pulls that Cutco knife out, they're thinking about you. Yep. Or instead of sending them a cup with your logo on it, send them a cup with their logo on it.
Yep.
Right. And so just all those things. So it's a really good book. So any listeners out there that are interested in that resource, I can drop the link for the book and additional information on that. But there's no sponsorship here. I just think it's a really good.
No, I have to check that out for sure. And that's exactly what we're doing. And so send out cards is another one. Again, we're just selling all these different places, but send out cards I use all the time.
Yeah.
And instead of just sending so for the Mother's Day thing that we did, instead of just sending people the link to their photos, what we're doing is I created a QR code and I created a custom card that says, Mom and Happy Mother's Day.
So it's already ready.
Their pictures on it.
Yeah.
And so it's like a collage, so they can cut it out and frame it if they wanted to. It's really pretty.
Yeah.
And then the second page of it is just, another note that says thank you so much for coming. It was so great to see you and spend time with you. And here's a link to your downloads for your file or for your photos. Check it out. Hope you enjoy them. But they also got the photo.
Yeah.
The collage of photos, and it's just how can you squeeze as much out of every little thing that you do,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's fun.
Yeah, I know.
When you get into doing this stuff, it's fun because you feel like you're making a difference.
You are. Yeah, and that's, like you said, that's the fun part. I know for me personally, that's a gym that I'm taking and I've got notes on because I feel like I do leave a lot on the table. And for me, I'm wired a little different. So if I don't naturally think about it, it's something that I will want to do in my mind, but actually facilitating it, and it could be clients hey, it's their birthday. And I could be thinking for 3.4 seconds, I could think oh, it'd be cool to send them something really quick for their birthday. Right. But then it's gone. Right. And then the execution fails. So that's something that I personally want to introduce into my own life. And not just with clients for the sake of trying to get more business. And I don't think that's why you do it either. It's just you want to be a good person and you want to take care of your network. And so it's not just people that have spent money or made money with me, but it's also people that may never do that, right? Just friends and family and all that kind of stuff. So that's really good. That's really good. That's a really good point. So got a question for you. So what would you contribute what skills do you contribute most to the success you've had in your business? Actually, before we do that, let's take a step back, because we keep talking about the success you've had in your business. You guys have heard Kelsey and Andy. You've heard Andy dropped a few times. We're going to get Andy on the podcast too. Because
awesome.
Andy is brilliant. He's a savant in his own right. So I'm excited to get him on. I'm gonna squeeze his arm. Hopefully we can get him on. But obviously most people know that you've grown a real estate business. You have had success in that business. Kelsey and Andy we had our ad running, for a lot of the things that they're doing. So that may be the semblance, and you guys like, oh shoot, I've heard this name before. But take us through the success you've had in your business. And I know sometimes it's hard to quantify because you've got different markets and all that kind of stuff. But, as we talk about a successful business, and in your right, success is different to everybody. But talk us through, what are some of the numbers that you've seen within your business, and how you guys actually quantify that kind of stuff. Just talk to us about your growth, success, and how you measure that and for the listeners here.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess starting out, it took me a minute to build my business at that time. And the first year I didn't sell anything until 6 months in. Wow. So it's a little bit scary. And those friends who aren't really friends anymore in your life, where they're betting against you kind of a thing. I had those friends at that time saying, so how long until you're going to get a job? That kind of thing. And that was tough, but it was also more fuel for the fire for me. All right, I'm going to bet on me, know? And 6 months, my first deal came in, and in that first year I ended up selling 10. So Typically that's what someone would sell in the first year for the whole entire year. So if you put that in perspective, the past 6 months I did 10 deals. And so that was enough for me to kind of be okay, I'm getting momentum. I feel like this is working.
And what did that produce for you? Do you remember that year one? What did you make in that year? Obviously you went 6 months, which is a struggle for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Sure, that wasn't fun.
No, it was not fun. And it was, the first
But as a new agent, what is that?
So production-wise, income-wise, I could do the math on it. That was probably about 30,000.
Okay. Yeah.
In my pocket.
And would you say that's typical for starting out agents, totally green to the space, somewhere around there?
I think that it's it all depends on your own work ethic, and it depends on if you're willing to go out there and get it. And when I started, that was 2016 was my first year, in the business. I didn't actually start full-time until January 2016. I also started in January in the middle of Ohio. That maybe wasn't the best timing. That was not great advice by someone.
That is true.
But that I would say that if I had gotten started in June or something like that, it takes 3 months at least to actually get your first deal. It just does, unless you have something really cooking in the pipeline that's coming before you're even licensed. Yeah. It takes time because you've got to build those, those clients. And then at that point in time, they're looking for a house. They're ready to sell a house. It takes time. Everything takes time. The closing process itself takes time. So I would say that's pretty average. It wasn't it was I knocked it out of the park, my first year, and I sold, $3.5 million or anything like that. It was, pretty average, but it was enough for me to realize okay, right there, my first year, I made my teacher salary, more than my teacher salary. And so I was happy, and so for me, I didn't get into the business thinking that it was going to be this huge money-making thing. I think that a lot of people look at real estate right now because of how big it's gotten is, with HGTV and all these different reality TV shows and just how the market is in general. They just see, really quick and easy money, and it's not it's just not. But I didn't get into it for that reason. I got into this because I was looking for something else that I felt was going to be my thing to build my career off of it, that was going to take me out of something I wasn't enjoying, but also put me in something that I felt I could use my passions for.
Yeah.
And helping people, my whole reason I was doing this was to help people. So,
and you could check, I was going to say just really quick, you could tell people who jump in for the wrong reasons because 100%. They would never be able to endure that first year. Right. And you were a teacher. No. So maybe the transition wasn't as hard because you didn't go from making $100,000 to $30,000. So maybe that wasn't that big of a challenge, but you were in it for the right reasons, right? And how many, this is a question out there. It's how many other entrepreneurs that are listening right now that can take going 6 months without any money being generated in their business and still wake up and say, you know what, this is still the thing that I'm doing. I'm getting better every single day. I'm building the funnel. I'm building the pipeline. Like there's so much of that instant gratification that I think in other genres of business, many people just expect, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're starting something so think about it, like you were doing something that had an industry already, had a niche already, you're working for a brokerage, you had skills and resources, you had peers that are doing the exact same thing that you can learn from, and it still took you 6 months to make $1.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many people that starting a brand new business that has none of that. They have no credibility, no proof of concept. They're just starting something from scratch. They don't have the marketing channels, any of that. And they're mad when they don't make money in their first month of their business or something like that.
Right.
So I just wanted to kind of like tie that down a little bit, because I think that's so important to people who are really growing something that they say, hey, I'm going to do this forever anyway. Like I plan to do this long term.
This is a career.
This is a career. Right. And I'd rather get rich for sure. Right. Or be successful for sure than try to being successful getting rich quick. So I love that. Sorry. But
yeah, no. And it's huge. And I think that that's something that I just posted this. I'm doing basically kind of a Q&A in a sense for anyone who's thinking about becoming a realtor. So I'm hosting this 1-hour event for someone to come in and basically just be like, okay, so you think you want to be a realtor? Let's learn about what that is. And that's one of the things I want to talk about for that is like, you've got to be willing to endure. Like you're building your suit of armor basically in that first year of your business. Like if you don't make it through that first year, you're probably not going to make it.
Yeah.
And that's just the hard truth. And I can tell you, like, just statistics wise, for National Association of Realtors, 12% is the only amount of people that actually make it past their second year in real estate.
Wow.
88% don't make it.
Wow.
That's the turnover rate for this industry. So I saw it. I mean, when I was a new agent, I saw so many brand new agents come in with me that never made it out the other side.
Yeah.
So I think that that's something that it's also like, you have to push through that. You have to be that 12%, you know? So, and it's hard. Like it's not fun, but it does build the business, foundation and skills and the things that you need, because when you're able to wake up every morning and do the things you know you need to do and never see the results for months at a time,
man,
it's a mindset thing. It's so hard.
Absolutely. So, like, Gary Vee says it all the time. Like, can you eat dirt? Right? Like, just eat dirt for a while. Like, what would
trust the process?
Yes. Like, what would it be to just put your head down and eat dirt and work and put in what you need to put in, not being so connected to the results, knowing that they will eventually take care of themselves. But hey, I'm doing this regardless. Like I'm doing it if I've got to do it by myself. I'm doing it if I've got to do it broke. I'm doing it if I've got to do it confused. I'm doing it if I've got to do it fearful, right? I'm doing it anyway, right? And how much further could we be if we didn't get caught up in the comparison or how we felt, or like just knowing that, hey, you're going to eat dirt for a while, right? And it's okay, because everyone that's gotten to where you want to go has had to do it as well. It's interesting how, and this is something that I've seen so like prevalent in my life, that anybody that talks down on you or that would ever have anything critical to say about you typically are not doing anything that you're doing, right? These are people that aren't building the kind of things that you're building. No one like that is successful are talking down on anybody, right? Because they know that, look, yo, everybody gets their turn. Everybody gets their turn to eat dirt. I don't get, it doesn't matter if you started off hot, because there could have been agents that started with you and they got their first deal their first month out of the gate. They had great relationships or some kind of family friend.
And I saw that. You can see that. Yeah. It's like you see the ones that get those quick successes and it's like, what am I doing wrong? Then you start to self-doubt yourself, like, man, what am I doing wrong? Why didn't I get that?
So powerful. So it's just putting that head down and eating dirt. I love that. So you did that 30K the first year. Really, your back end got really hot. And you went into that following year with tons of momentum, I'm sure.
For sure. And so that's when I really feel like I started to build that consistency. So 10 deals my first year, and I do it based on deals because I feel like that's something that people can relate to no matter where you're at in the country. Like our price point is so much lower than anywhere else in the world. For sure. So that just kind of helps give people perspective. So 10 in the first year, second year I did 28. So I basically, tripled that business almost, if you look at it that way. 28 my second year. And then by my third year, I did 55 deals.
Wow.
So every year, basically after that, I was doubling, my business.
Nuts.
And then the next year after that, so 55, my third year was my hardest year. The year after that, I did 65 deals. So that's my first 3 years in the business. By year 4, that's when we started a team. 65 deals. So it was a 10, 28, 55, 65. And this is all on my own. This is me as a solo agent. Like
Yeah.
65 deals. I would say at that point in time, it was 70, 30, maybe 75, 25,
Okay.
75% buyers,
Yeah.
25% sellers.
Wow.
Hard.
Wow.
A lot of running and a very, very patient spouse. Because I was just never home.
Yeah.
And that's when, so the first 4 years was me by myself doing that. And then by year 5, that's when we started the team.
Okay.
And then that's when we started what was the KTR group.
Yeah.
And our first year with the KTR group, we did 157 transactions for the team, which is wild to think
That's
about. And it
nuts.
was like basically like between 5 and 9 core agents the whole time. So when you do the math on that, like that's like each agent was producing. And that was also the year that Andy quit his job. It was also the year that we had our first child. That was also the year of the pandemic. Like it
Boring
was
year.
like
That was a boring year
2020.
for you. Clearly, you didn't. There was a boring
It
year.
was an insane year. And then 2021 last year, we really kind of hunkered down on our skill set with the team and, poured a lot into that. Just, we got up to 13 agents at one point in time. We were focused on growing the team and going down that path. And at that point, I think we did about 160 the next year.
Yeah.
So we were kind of keeping consistent, but our price point had gone up and everything. And we were just trying to grow the team. And then by end of last year, we ended up dissolving that said team.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll talk about that in a second. Dissolved the team in December of 2021. And this year so far, between me and Andy, our own sales, just him and I, we are up 160%.
Wow.
From 2021 at this time with the entire team with our own numbers.
Wow.
So we are just 100% focused on our own business at this point in time. And we've changed our whole entire, like what we're doing, and what we're focusing on. But it's been pretty cool to see like the growth for our own sales, just seeing that we're doing more than what we did with the entire team just between him and I. So
that's
a
there's
very
so much
quick
there.
Snapshot.
Yeah, but there's so much there. There's this concept of quantum leaps. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of quantum leaps, but it's in essence a concept where it's more of a mindset really, but it's knowing that, and it's a lot of science stuff, but it's atoms can make quantum leaps. So something that was in motion or something that was in one space can make a leap into a completely different space. And so sometimes people think growth has to be like 5%, 10%. I got 5 clients last year and I'm going to get 7 clients this year, or I'm going to get 10 clients. But you had some quantum leaps. You were doubling business, at a very rapid pace, right? It's hard for someone to say, hey, we've doubled business for the last 3 years, right? You had these phases of quantum leaps. What I do know is that that's often how business grows. Rarely is business just like up and to the right. If you check any stock ticker, if you check any financial statements for businesses over long periods of time, you'll see most businesses don't just grow consecutively and steady. They leap, they jump in almost like, oh, shoot, like we're in this whirlwind now. We're growing and it's like nuts. Talk to us a little bit about that growth for you. Like what does growth feel like? What does growing a business really feel like? Doubling it year over year. Talk to us about some of the stuff that you went through during this massive growth that you've seen in your business.
Yeah. I don't know. I might give you a different response than what I feel like most people will give. So I feel like growth is hard. Growth is hard. And what I've found over the past 7 years, every time that I would hit a ceiling and get to that next, between 28 and 55, the reason I said my third year is my hardest year is because that's such a massive growth. 28 to 55 deals by yourself. And how many of those were buyers? 40 of those were buyers. Wow. So if you do the math on that, how many buyers you're running at one point in time, showing them a house at the drop of a hat, writing offers and just all of that, whatever that takes. It was hard. And it was a mental game for me. And when you get to that point where you're so drained and you're so just exhausted and you're just beat down, you're not showing up in a good place for anyone. Like you're not showing up in a good way for yourself, for your family, for your clients, for anyone. And that was the first time that I felt like I was, that whole grind mentality. I felt like I was grinding and it wasn't healthy. And it was the first time that I was like, I don't want to grow anymore. I don't want, you know what I mean? And it was a negative for me. And that was the first year that I started to put some standards in place for myself, for my business, and said, listen, I can't keep doing this. Like, this is not healthy. So for me, between that was, I don't know what year it was at this point in time, but that third year for me, year 3 to year 4, I started to set some boundaries. And if you notice, my growth kind of slowed down a little bit between those 2 years. I did 55 that year, and then I did 65 the next year. So I only grew by 10 more deals. That's, about one more per month, roughly. Yeah. Like, not a huge growth. But I was so much happier that next year, and I was able to manage it so much better because it wasn't this massive growth and change constantly.
Yeah.
And what I've realized is that growth that you don't control isn't always a positive thing, because you're just playing catch up. You're just constantly trying to react to everything. You're not on top of it. You're not trying to be proactive with it. That kind of growth, that like organic, natural growth, is hard. But then what happens, I feel like, is once you go through it, then you know how to adapt to it and put systems in place to be able to support that growth. So it's not that you don't want the growth. It's not that you don't want to grow your business. It's not that at all. It's that you then have to figure out, how can I manage this and still live a good lifestyle and still be healthy and still, show up in the best way that I can. So I feel like that was that kind of growth, and that's a totally different thing. But growth, intentional growth, is completely different. And I feel like right now we are in that intentional growth phase right now for us. And I think when it's an intentional growth phase and you're saying, I am putting my head down, I am working towards something. I'm working towards whatever my next goal is. And it's really hard right now. Like, I know, like, for us, me and Andy right now, like, we are working as hard as we possibly can, but it's not a grind. There's grit. And Andy said this the other day. I'm going to quote him on it. There's a difference between grind and grit, and they have a completely different connotation. And grind is a negative. Grind means something is not working. Something is grinding against itself. I hate that word, and I feel like that word gets used a lot in entrepreneurship. And then grit, I feel like, means that you've got the grit to sustain.
Right.
That you can bear things that most people can't, And I feel like this market right now, like, it takes grit to be in this market right now.
And really, the more grit you have, the less grinding you really got to do. Like, if you think of, real sandpaper, the more gritty a paper is, the less you've got to sand, the more it actually cuts down.
You just got to trust it. It's trusting that process and just knowing that, like, this will work. And so the growth phase that we're in right now, it's interesting. It's like, it's hard because it's like, I mean, Andy and I have to schedule time to talk to each other,
That's real.
But we're choosing it. Like, we're choosing that. I think that that's the difference, is that growth, like, it's just such a different feeling. It's a different experience. It's still hard. There's still negatives that come with it, of learning through it and everything. But I mean, we're in that phase where it's just like, we're pushing ourselves to grow. When you're pushing yourself and you're intentionally choosing to grow, it's like you're putting your head down and you're saying, I know this is going to suck for a little while. Yeah. I know this is not the life that I want to live permanently, but I'm doing this to build the life that I want to live permanently.
Man, that's so powerful, because I love that, especially, and I want to kind of pivot a little bit in the conversation, because we've talked about Andy quite a bit. You have introduced your love life with your work life, right? Most people try to separate the two. Right. You and Andy are co-owners of what you do and what you guys put out there in the world. How do you do that? What does success look like? What are some of the things you've had to implement to make sure you guys don't go crazy? Because though, and here's the piece to you. It's like, I get it that you guys it's not like you guys both run like a store where it's like you see each other all day and someone's bagging the groceries and the other person's checking them out. It's like you guys probably operate almost in different worlds, almost exclusively, if based on the kind of business and the industry that you're in. So what you guys go through may be different than someone that's working together all day, every day. So your dynamic might be a little bit different, but talk to us a little bit about how you guys do that today.
So it's been a process, to be honest with you. And again, like, you've got people that will bet against you. And you got to be aware of that. Yeah. But those are the people that can also drive you and push you. There were so many people that were like, that is not a good idea. You guys should not do this. Don't do this. Don't work together. You're going to ruin your marriage. Like, it's not a good idea. And we like to go against the grain in a lot of things.
You guys are gritty.
But we are, I mean, we're the type, like, for some reason, me and Andy, like, we are like, when that happens, like we are closer, like we are more united and a team when those things happen. So for us, it's been a process, and it's not been easy by any stretch of the imagination. It's been a learning process of learning how we work together, how we balance each other. Andy and I are polar opposite in pretty much everything. And what's funny is that it took some time to realize like where he fit, because I mean, to give you, and this, it's got to be hard for him, or what probably was hard for him in some ways. He left a business that he was building with someone from the ground up. I mean, he had built a multi-million-dollar company from the ground up with his friend, a startup company, and he had not ownership necessarily, but he had, I mean, skin in the game, and he was an important person in that world, So he basically took himself from being like, I am the guy, one of the guys, to I am joining my wife's business.
Joining where you're already like, the woman. Like, this is your thing. Yeah.
Right. This was my thing. And he was like, I know nothing. Like, he was taking himself and basically putting himself down to like the bottom level. And so that was challenging. I mean, it was challenging for me to let go of control and let go of, I mean, this was my baby, like my business at that point in time, you know? And it's funny because now I say we and our and everything all the time, but it took wiring. It took like rewiring my brain to say our business,
this is our business.
So I would say the first year was probably the toughest. So 2020, just figuring out like where he fit. And our idea was for him to not be selling. Like, we're like, yeah, you're just gonna be on the back end, just running things and pushing and, raising the needle, whatever. That does not work. It did not work because he had no ownership in the actual business itself. The result. And like that's not income producing, you know? True. So when you can't be someone who's also controlling the income and feeling like you have ownership in that, like it just didn't work. So it was 2020. I was pregnant with Cooper. And that summer I was like, I'm going to need you to be the person that takes over this business come September 29th or whatever the date was going to be. And it was like, I will help you. I will teach you. I will do whatever I need to do, but I'm going to need you to do this. Like, I just knew that I was going to have to take a step back from the business. And so that's when he really started to get going a little bit more on showing houses and getting comfortable with that and everything. And then it wasn't until I had Cooper that it was basically sink or swim.
Wow.
For him. I was like, go. Like,
the lights are on
it's not
now.
That I didn't care about our clients, but I was like, I cannot care about anything besides keeping this little human alive and making sure that like I am doing that job. And that's when he really started to thrive, was when I completely let go of control and said, go,
you got to do this.
You do it. You got this. And so that was, the first year for us. And then last year, 2021 was the first full year of him being a part of the sales, the business and everything like that. And it was kind of the juggle between like, still trying to figure out where each other fits. We tried a couple of different things. I mean, there's no guidebook for this. Like, there's no, like, yes, you see husband and wives that work together in real estate all the time, but I feel like it's so custom to you and what your skill sets are and what you're like, what are you good at? And so for us, it took a little bit. And now at this point in time, we've really found a really awesome groove where like I finally realized that I had to give up the buyer business to him. Like I had to.
Okay.
And even for our personal life, like me being home with Cooper for bedtime, like I needed to do this. And it gave him the ownership that he needed. And then I was able to focus all of my attention on my sellers. And I work with buyers on the simultaneous transactions, the ones that work with, that are both selling and buying at the same time. That's my thing. But he's still the person boots on the ground doing the showings at this point. Like I have probably shown less than 5 houses in the past 6 months, year. Like I don't do showings anymore, and that's his thing. And he loves it. Like that's what he really enjoys doing. So we've kind of found that balance. But I think what it's been is it's been a learning process. It's like, I think you have to be open with each other and keep the conversation going, because it can get frustrating. And I think that it's something that you can bottle that frustration up and use it against each other. And like we've been through, it's almost like frustration and then release, and then frustration and then release. It's like that conversation to figure out like, this is why I'm frustrated. This is why this isn't working. Like we've got to figure out something else. And that open form of communication. In the past 2 years, I feel like him and I have become such better communicators with each other in all aspects of life, in marriage, everything, because we're working together, because you have to. Like if you don't communicate, like there's just no way it would work. And so that I feel like has been kind of our like figure it out in the past 2 years process. is just being open to that conversation and that frustration. Sometimes it's time apart from each other.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
I need a time, like I
Need some
need a
space.
moment to just, yeah. And so like we'll do it like at night, because there's sometimes when we do spend a ton of time together, and there's sometimes when we like don't see each other at all. Like it just kind of ebbs and flows with, whatever the business is at that time. And it's like sometimes you also just need to be able to disconnect by yourself. It's like I'm gonna go to the room and watch a movie and do my thing, and you're gonna stay downstairs and you're gonna do
Yeah.
your thing,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
and getting
so
that
important,
space.
Kelsey. Yeah, I think that's so important, especially today, right? And I think we're in such an entrepreneurial culture, um, and so many people know that they need an additional help. They need other resources. They need other people to bring in. But sometimes their businesses aren't in a place to hire someone out, right, and pay someone a salary, et cetera, to bring them into their business. And so their spouse could be great, low hanging fruit for less,
Right.
for lack of a better term. Um, but the challenge with that is how do you work it all out and how do you flow together and work together? So, I love that because, yeah, it isn't for everybody. But also the same mindset can equally be how do we make this for us?
Mm-hmm.
Because what works for one person doesn't work for the other. And I think you said it, very good when you mentioned like, hey, you almost had to just rip the Band-Aid off. Like you, and I see this a lot in corporate America where, people are trying to transition out of a thing. And, let's say a transition period that's, we're going to transition for the next 3 months, or we're going to transition for the next 6 months or whatever. Right. Or, but that thing becomes very hard in transition. You're almost better off just cutting it now, right? And having the person go through whatever they've got to go through to build up their own stamina and capacity to walk into that role than it is to try to transition and mosey them on along. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to build an on-ramp successfully. Like
Right.
it's easy to do it on a highway, but it's hard to do it in life, right? Sometimes, like for you, motherhood, you had to have Cooper, right? Like
Yeah.
you just had to rip the
There's
Band-Aid off. You just
no
had to jump
book
in.
out there to prepare you for that
You just had to jump
at
in.
all.
You just had to jump
Right.
in. And so if you're listening, you just got to jump in, people, family. Like you just got to jump in to building the kind of life that you want. The life that you want, you might not find a book. You may not find another person. You may not find a YouTuber. You may not find someone out there that has the exact life and replica. But like Kelsey is talking about, you just have to rip the Band-Aid off. Like you just have to make the decision that I'm going to take the action and be okay with making the adjustments, right? Like it's so important to say, hey, we're going to start here, but we're not going to be closed off to correction. We're not going to be closed off to adjusting and making the pivots that we need to make in order to be successful in our lives. I think when building any business of any success, when you've got any significant goals, you've got to be a person that wants to do that, that wants to put in the work to not have this definite result. Like, hey, once I set it, I forget it. Nope. You got to set it and you got to adjust it and you got to adjust it and there is no set it and forget it in life or in
And
business.
that's business. I mean, that's any business or any life. It's like you look at marriage, you look at your business, whatever it is. Like if you don't have a hand on the pulse and you aren't able to change when you need to change, like your business is never going to grow,
Yeah.
or your marriage is never going to thrive. Like I feel like that's just something that you have to have for everything,
So powerful.
is being willing to change when you need to change.
What does investment look like to you? How have you invested in yourself to get yourself to the position that you're in now?
So I think for me, there's been multiple different ways for that. I feel like it's very, very important to have a tribe behind you, because you're in your business, whatever it is, all alone. And no one's going to care about your business like you care about your business. But what happens is you can feel really depleted if you don't have someone else on that journey with you in some capacity. Now, not with you in the sense of like they're on my team or they're with me in my business or anything like that, but just people who are in the same walk of life, of some sort. And I mean, you're the average of the five people you're surrounding yourself with, that kind of thing. Making sure that your circle is always growing, growing with you, not growing
Mm,
bigger, just growing with you. And for me, it's been finding my people, throughout the time that I needed. It's like, and you kind of, you'll go through phases or seasons where that person was a major person in my life at that time, but now they're not. And then I have someone else that's a major person in my life at that time, and now they're not. Like, I think that kind of change over time, that's an investment for me that I feel like you kind of look past, and it's really, really important. And there's gonna be times when you feel like you are just kind of the lone soldier, you're doing it by yourself, and that's
yeah.
okay too. But that's an investment for me. And the other thing is just, I think you have to listen to yourself. You have to be able to hear what you need. And for me, there's been times when I didn't want growth. Like
Mm.
there's been times when I, like, to be honest with you, um, 2021 was probably like from September, I'll tell you, September 29th until September 29th, the first year of Cooper's life, I did not want to grow. Like I was at capacity. I was so, like, learning how to be a mom, learning how to be that and add that into my life, add that layer into my life and into our business. Like, it's not that I didn't care about the business, but I knew that, like, I wasn't focused on myself at that time and I couldn't be. And so I think
Yeah.
it's hearing what you need, because when Cooper turned 1, it's weird. Like, this switch happened. Cooper turned 1. I was like, all right, what's next? We
Yep.
got this. We did it. We're good. Like, we're figuring this out. Now, how can I grow with this new addition in our life?
Mm.
And that's when it really started to open up my mindset to, what are we doing that's working? What are we doing that's not working? How can we change this? And, like, again, like, kudos to Andy for bearing with me through all that, because he knew. I mean, he could tell that I didn't want to grow anything at that point in time. Like, I just wanted to literally put it on autopilot,
Yeah.
And so for me, then after that, was my growth phase for sure, kind of starting again and growing from there. So I think that investing in yourself when you need to invest in yourself, in like the business world, in growing yourself, being a part of different classes, being a part of different educational things you're doing, or whatever it is, it's going to help you get to the next thing. But then investing in yourself too, when it comes to, like, your personal time, your um, whatever that looks like for you, a girls' night or a bath or whatever it is, a shower, and being able to, like, dry your hair and fix it by
Yeah.
yourself, like, whatever it needs to be for
Right.
you, I think that those are all investments in yourself. And I think that they're all equally important. And I think that, I'm someone that, like, I need to get better about it for sure. And I need to schedule it in.
Mm.
Like,
The
if it's
schedule.
not on my schedule, it just won't
It just
happen,
won't happen. It just
So
won't
I don't know if
happen.
that answers
Yeah. No,
the
that's
question.
great. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. And that connects right into but I think you hit on my other question was going to be, how do you stay organized with all of these spinning plates, all these things, your mom, your wife, your daughter, you're a business owner. And there's a bunch of, you're a podcaster, you're a coach now, you run a real estate business. You've got a lot of spinning plates. How do you
Yeah.
stay organized and kind of keep things in, and I hate using the word because I don't think it exists, but I was going to say balance. Don't want to say balance because I don't personally think balance exists. But how do you keep, I would call it rhythm. How do you keep a rhythm when it comes to all the spinning plates that you have?
Yeah, no, that is a great question. So we're learning, because I agree with you. I don't think that balance is a real thing. There's no such thing as this perfect, not when you're in not when you're in a business space where you're growing a business.
Yeah.
I'm sure that maybe in a different realm there might be such a thing. But for me, what really works is being able to look at all of the plates that you're talking about spinning and prioritize them. So, in priority order, what is the most important down to the least important thing? And then it's a matter of, they all have to fit into your schedule somehow, right? So, you have to plan out your schedule, you have to plan out your calendar. And
Yeah.
I think that if you're trying to just manage these things as they come, it's never gonna work. It's just not. Like, that's when I felt like I was constantly stressed and what is it? What you say, where you can do something in 20 minutes, or you can do it in 2 hours.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Time
but if
expands.
you're putting on your calendar, time expands, yes, as time allows. And I think that that's the key, is, tracking it. You're tracking these things. So if you're focused on something, it's like, this has to fit. If I'm going to do this, this has to fit. So where does it fit? And being able to kind of prioritize those things. This is something else that I feel like I've really been leaning on recently, because I think that when you're in these growth phases, you're basically trying to expand your capacity, is what you're
Yes.
doing.
Yes.
So it is a growth phase for your mindset. It's a growth phase for your own intellectual, like, being. Like, everything is growing. And that's hard, because you're basically saying, like, I know I fit into this right now, but I need to fit into this,
Mm.
or I'm trying to fit this into this,
Yeah.
And so it's like constantly trying to push yourself in that sense. And what I love and what I really lean on is thinking about all these different things as balls. You have all these balls you can drop, right? Like,
So
I'm going to
true.
drop the ball here, I'm going to drop the ball there. and realizing that there are some balls that are glass and there are some balls that are plastic.
Mm,
And knowing that, like knowing the difference between which ones are glass and plastic, you're going to drop the ball.
that's
You're
so
going to
good.
drop the ball here and there. And I think for me, it's just knowing that if I drop the ball here, it's not going to be the end of the world and it's going to suck and I'm going to be disappointed in myself and I'm going to have to say I'm sorry or something. But it's not going to be life changing,
Yeah.
and it's not going to impact our business. Now, our clients are glass balls. We will never drop the ball with our clients. We
Yeah.
just won't,
Yeah.
But if I double book myself one time here or there and I mess it up on my calendar or something, it sucks and it's embarrassing, but it's also going to be fine and you'll figure it out,
Yeah.
So I think that that's one of the key things for me is just giving yourself grace. And I actually just recorded a podcast episode on this, being frustrated with yourself when you're trying to grow. So if anyone wants to listen to that, but it was basically me talking about the fact that you have to ask for grace. You have to ask for it. And when you're doing these and you're growing and everything, like you're not going to be perfect. You're just not, like, it's not possible. And people may not understand, and that's okay. But someone who doesn't understand, who is an important person in your life, you have to ask for grace for it,
Yeah.
And we just did that recently with some family, and it was good because I feel like it helps them see that you care, that you're not doing these things intentionally,
Right.
Maliciously. But when you ask for it, then it's like they're going to give you grace,
Yeah.
if you actually ask for it.
That's so true. Yeah, I think it's you to spin that many plates. This is kind of something that I've like started to coin, if you will, but it's like you just get used to saying sorry. You just get used to apologizing, right? Because in our head we could think like, oh, this is the end of the world. And you realize like, hey, my apologies. You just get used to it, right? It's just like, hey, I'm sorry. And it's not to overshadow organization. That's not what we're doing at all.
No.
But we know that there will be times where things butt up against each other. And we'll have to triage, right? It's this whole concept. I think it was World War II was like the concept of triage became a thing. It was one of those wars. I think it was one of the wars. World War I, World War II, maybe Cold War. I don't know. A war. All right. Don't fact check me on this. Yeah, there's some war that triage was implemented because at one point it was patient comes in, we fix that patient, and then they go out. So it was first in, first out kind of model. And then they started to introduce triage, and triage was, okay, what is the things that we need to do right now? If you look at Stephen Covey's kind of urgent, important, non-urgent, non-important.
Yep.
His
yes,
it's that, right? It's what are the things that are most urgent and important right now? And so it's the person that's, if they sit on the table for 5 more minutes, they'll bleed out. They become urgent. And then you only fix that. You don't fix everything. You just fix them and keep them alive, right? And I think business is sometimes like that. Like that's not how you want to live in business, but sometimes you do have to triage. Sometimes you have to say, hey, like this is what takes the precedent right now. We've got to fix this, and then we can get to the other stuff. And sometimes when you're triaging, everybody doesn't get what they want. Everybody doesn't get the entire, I've been in a hospital before, right? And it's like, oh, I got to wait another 55 minutes for the doctor comes in to finally do this one thing for me, right? But it's the best way to service and serve and support as many things as possible. So I love that. So a few things, and I want to kind of start landing the plane here. So I want to do this fire round, and it's going to be about 5 questions that I ask, and I just want to get your responses on it. So we're just kind of going to fire some questions at you.
Okay.
So you're on the hot seat right now. Dun, 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 dun.
No pressure.
All right. So ready for the fire round. Okay. So the first question I've got for you is, if you could only have one book for the rest of your life, and that was the only book you could ever read, what book would it be?
Okay, book in personal or book in business?
It doesn't matter. You only got one. You only got one book.
Oh, man. Okay. I think it'd be the Bible.
Okay, that's a phenomenal book. That's a great one.
So that's a hard one. I can't not say that.
I think the Bible, though, that would, because it gives you everything. It gives you business. It gives you money. It gives you all the stuff.
There's so much in there.
There's so much there.
And you can remember the concepts from other books.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you what the other book would be if it weren't that.
Okay. What is it?
Can't Hurt Me. David Goggins.
David Goggins is a beast. Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yes.
That book had me going to like the gym at 3 a.m., running until I was getting ready to die. David Goggins will put you in a place, man, where you're like, this can't hurt me. I do this until I die. Yep. I'm ready to die for this. All right. So that was a good one. That's a good plan B is David Goggins. Good stuff. All right. If you lost everything, what would you do to rebuild your life or business?
I would.
And maybe to dial it down a little bit, like what are some of the first things you would do? You lost it
I
all.
would figure out. I would figure out what I wanted to do next first.
Mm,
I wouldn't just do exactly what I'd been doing. I would figure out if this is going to force a pivot in my life or a change in my life. Is this what I want to do again or do, differently? So for me, real estate may not be that vehicle anymore. What
yeah.
is the vehicle going to be? So I think for me, it's going to be choosing what the vehicle is and then going all in on building that.
Oh, that's a bar. Kelsey, that's a bar. I love that. I love that. That's so good. I don't want to expound in it. We'll let it hold its own place.
Let it
Okay.
be.
What one quote or mantra do you live life by? Like what's one really good one that you live life by?
Can I read it? Because I have it saved on my desktop
Sure. Yeah.
so I don't butcher it.
Go ahead.
All right. Results happen over time, not overnight. Work hard, stay consistent, and be patient. And I don't even know who it's by.
That's a good one. That's a good one. It's by Kelsey. That's her
It's
quote.
by Kelsey. Yep.
All right. Who inspires you the most?
Honestly, I don't know that I have someone right now in my life that is inspiring in this moment. I know that sounds bad. I know
I
that
wasn't
sounds
gonna
really
say
bad.
it. I wasn't gonna say it, but
It sounds really bad, but I think that this is the whole thing. We're in a point in our business right now where we're growing and changing so much that like we're so focused on what we're doing that I'm not really looking outside for inspiration at the moment. I'm just so focused in.
yeah.
Um, I mean, someone that I always look at that I'm just like, they have done something so truly special that is always inspiring to me, is Joanna Gaines.
Yeah.
I mean, just knowing that she can literally do anything that she wants to do and she will be successful at it.
Yeah.
Like
She's pivoted
she
a
is
lot.
just and doing it in a way that like, so I guess she is probably the one person for me. She's done it in a way that has been true to her family in her life. Like she knows that like her family is the core and the most important thing. Like everything that she's done has been built around that.
Yeah.
The reason that she gave up HGTV was because she wanted to be with her family and focus on something different.
Yeah.
So
I love
I would
that.
say her.
I love that. Okay. All right. And then the last one. What was the best thing you spent $100 on? Or less?
Man, the best thing I spent $100 on. That's a tough one. I'm so bad because I'm like Amazon here, Amazon there.
Right. Maybe your Amazon Prime, is that?
Yeah, no, maybe my Amazon Prime. Exactly. That is it. No. Man, that's a tough one. Give me a second. Just let me think. Hold on.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Well, so this is one thing that sounds silly. And it's not necessarily, it's a monthly subscription. So we'll just say by month. Send out cards. Like I love that platform and I love what I'm able to do with it. Between those two, between Canva and send out cards. I know it's like a business thing specifically.
Okay.
But both of those give me the ability to like love my people and do all the things that I want to do that makes me happy.
I love that.
And create. Canva, I get to create.
Yes. Canva is such a gem. Canva changed.
Oh my gosh.
It made
life changing.
It made non-graphic or graphic designers. Like,
yep.
If you got a little eye and can learn to sit, yeah. So that's another gem.
It's amazing.
That's good. Okay. Awesome. Well, Kelsey, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I thank you so much for taking the time out to be able to join us. We will provide all of Kelsey's links where to find her, social media. She's got her own podcast. I'm going to let her close. And so Kelsey, when you close, I want you to talk about your podcast as well. But we'll provide all the links and all the stuff where to find her. In closing, Kelsey, if you could do two things. If you could speak something to the version of you 5 years ago. Let's say, where you were in your business 5 years ago, something today that you would speak to that person. If you could kind of give that person a message, whatever message you want, and then let the people know where to find you and how to connect with you and what's going on in your world.
Yeah. So 5 years ago was just about when I had switched to EXP. And if I could change one thing about how I grew my business or anything like that, I would have poured a lot more time into growing our agent group at EXP from the beginning. and believing in myself that I could do that. I didn't believe that I could do it, you know? And now we're doing it, but we're 5 years in. I think about what could have been different if we had done that 5 years ago, and how different that could look now, to build the life that we're building and everything. So I think that for me, it would have been like, look both ways, look at it smarter, not harder, not just building your business transactionally with clients, but also building your long-term passive income.
Yeah.
Like, look at both of those things. They're both important. So that's what I would have said, I
Okay.
think.
Love that.
And then as far as just about me, where to find me, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So you can find us on Instagram, Facebook. So myself, I am Kelsey the Realtor on Instagram, or you can find us on Facebook. It's just at Life with Woz. Life with Woz is kind of our mantra right now. Just it encompasses everything for us: business, life, adventure, fun, family, everything. So Life with Woz is our thing. If you get on to podcasts, check us out. It's the Bigger Life podcast. It's myself and Andy, and we do a lot of episodes together. We also do solo episodes, and we interview as well. But the whole premise of that entire podcast is about being able to build a bigger life than just the right now, and thinking outside the box with things. And I think that so many people get so caught up in numbers and business, and they don't think about, just because something hasn't been done a certain way doesn't mean that you can't be the person that does it. So I think that that's really what the foundation of that is for that. So check it out. Andy and I are both on there. But otherwise, if you wanted to, so Justin mentioned I'm a coach. I do all those things for real estate agents as well. If you're looking for more of that real estate person to do a discovery call or something, check it out, calendly.com/life with Kelsey Woz. So you can find me there and book a free call for that. I do all different types of coaching and whatnot too, but also just I'd love to meet anyone else too. Obviously, if you're in the real estate world, making connections is huge. So reach out anytime.
I love it. There it is. There it is. So again, guys, we will drop all of Kelsey's links within the show notes so you know where to find her Calendly, the podcast, her socials, and all that kind of good stuff. And again, Kelsey, we thank you. And as we always finish, we thank you for checking out this episode of the Pivot Mindset Podcast. Remember to give this podcast a rating and review. We ask that you would share it, that you would post it, that you would continue to talk about how this podcast has helped you. And remember, we believe that life is all about the pivots, and those who decide to make the pivots decide to become successful. Peace.